guys, welcome back to my channel. So do you think the title's clickbait? Well, the answer is a little bit of yes and no, but stick with me. Before we get into the changes that I made to add 25 pounds to my bench in 2 months, I want to take you back to the beginning. As you've heard me discuss numerous times, Bench and I have had a love-hate relationship. I actually hit 135 pretty quickly. This was back in 2016. At the time, I owned a group exercise studio and taught about 5 classes a week. So I would just randomly go to the gym with my husband. I didn't have a program. Every day I went, which was like 2 or 3 times a month, was basically just see how much weight I could lift on whatever it was I decided to do. Fast forward to 2018 is when, after 15 years, I left the group exercise world, joined my husband's gym, and dove headfirst into powerlifting using Jim Wendler's 531. I used that to, little by little, just increase my weights and become more comfortable with the main lifts. And in June of 2019, I entered my first meet, which was just a local push-pull meet. I've talked about that before as well. I was the only girl in my weight class, and there was only 2 girls there. But my weight attempts for that meet was 140, 150, and 160. I got 140 and 150, missed 160. I'm pretty sure 155 was my max at the time, so I probably should have just went with that, but I really wanted a bench PR that day. So the following months, my bench actually really took off. I can't remember if I was still doing 531 or if I had tried something else, but I had hit 160 and 165, and then on a random unicorn day, I hit 170, never to be touched again. In the following months, I found 2 videos of me failing 175 in October of 2019 and December of 2019. I don't remember ever hitting 170 again, so I'm pretty sure I must have tried going from 165 to 175, obviously to fail it. Enter 2020, everything closes down. At the time, we didn't have our garage gym, so we had no equipment at home, and my training was reduced to body weight workouts and little videos that I found on YouTube. Even when gyms open up again, training was kind of sporadic because they would keep closing down. It always seemed like every time I would get towards like the peaking phase, or like when things would start to get heavier again, it would shut down. So all of 2020 was basically a wash. In January of 2021, our equipment started coming for the garage gym, and I got back on a program in February, which was the Johnny Candido 6-week program. I did 1 cycle of that and then had a little SBD day just to kind of gauge where everything was, and I ended with a 165 bench. Following that, I tried the Candido bench-specific program. At the end of that, I did work up to 170. That was in June. In July, after I was in the final stages of another round of his regular 6-week program, I hit 170 again, and that was just before I had another full SBD test day. And I failed 175. Again, I know for sure I didn't hit 170 because I didn't want to end on 170, so I likely went from 165 to 175. I did PR my squat and deadlift that day, so it wasn't a complete wash. But that took me right into my very first powerlifting meet, which is in September of 2021, where on the platform I ended with 154 and failed 159. Coming off that, is when I ran my first round of Brendan Teet's Submax DUP. That started in September for 12 weeks, and that brought me into December with the Braun virtual event, and I ended that with 160 for 1. So January of 2022, I was back on meet prep for my April meet, and again was using the Brendan Teet's program. I have videos on how that prep went, but it ended with a 149 bench on the platform, followed by 2 154 fails. And that brings us to current. And after that meet, I felt like something had to change. I had been doing these programs for years and years, and while I would see increases in my rep PRs, it never seemed to carry over to my 1 rep max. Now for years, my husband's been telling me, get off these programs, just focus on heavy singles and triples. But I just never felt like I could be a person to not follow a program. He keeps track of all of it in his head, and he writes some things down. But for the most part, he just focuses on heavy singles and triples, and he benches over 400 pounds, so I probably should have listened to him a while ago. One thing you might not know about me is I do have a degree in exercise science, so I understand the general rules of progressive overload and programming, but when it came to powerlifting, I felt better using a program that was written by a powerlifting coach. So I took what I liked from the Brendan Teets program, which was the format and his accessories, which I think I'm gonna do a whole video on, like a week of accessories, so you can see that I do more than just squat, bench, and deadlift. I did flip-flop the days, so instead of having a squat bench day and then a deadlift day, I put squat and deadlift together and then bench by itself. I know that in a meet, you bench after you squat, but just for this time, I wanted to have my heavy bench be by itself. So as you can see, the first change that I made was incorporating singles. So the goal for these singles is to do 10 reps starting at about 70%. And then where you end up is where you end up. So you could repeat weights or increase weights week to week, but the goal is just to see some kind of increase, whether it's in volume or your top weight. So it's kind of a built-in RPE because you can just take what's there for the day. So my first week I worked up to 150, but I hadn't really planned well and didn't get all my 10 reps in. Week 2, I ended with 2 top sets of 160. The second one was a little shaky, and you could see how excited I was that I grinded it out. And that's one common thing you'll see as we go through these weeks, is that I've really gotten good at learning how to grind through a rep, which is something I always struggled with in the past. So the small jumps just continued like this week to week, whether with the top set or multiple sets at what you had ended the week before. So in addition to the singles, the second change that I made was adding in overload work. And that started on my singles day. I would take whatever my top set was and put the slingshot on, do 2 sets of 3, and then an AMRAP. So it was just a way to get additional volume at a heavier weight and just be used to feeling that heavy weight in my hands. On my second bench day of the week, I used the bench block on the 2 board and was doing 3 sets of 3, either with ascending reps or multiple top sets of the same weight with the same principle as the single. Some kind of increase week over week, whether it was just a total volume or an increase in weight in your top set. My first week, I started at 165 and just did 3 sets of 3 there. And that quickly progressed. I ended with 195 for 3 and a set of 200 for 2, which I was really hoping would be 3. But I blame that on the song changing during my set. The final variation that I've been doing is a Spoto press, and that's something that I kind of always overlooked. To me, they just looked like half reps. I kind of didn't really understand what benefit they would have, but the more I looked into it, it seemed like it would help where I struggle, which is right off of my chest. The first week I started at 140 and I was doing sets of 5, 3 sets of 5 with this. And that quickly progressed and actually turned into being an overload exercise. I ended the first block with 170 for 5, which obviously over my 1 RM. I feel that all the practice of reversing weight right at my sticking point has paid off, and again has helped me learn how to grind through some reps. So the final change I made kind of just happened naturally, and that is benching with my feet more out and my heels down. When I first started in the gym, I always had my feet tucked. I would try to get them back as far as close to my shoulders as I could with my heels up. I mentioned in my meet video that I had kind of gradually brought my feet out more, but my heels were still lifted. Well, as I worked through these overload exercises and the weights continued to get heavier, I noticed that my heels just kept getting closer and closer to the ground as I engaged my leg drive, to the point that that's almost where I was starting at. And now I feel the most stable that I've ever felt in bench, with my heels down from the starting position, my knees out a little bit, and my feet way farther out in front of me. One thing you'll notice too is that I did start wearing my elbow sleeves again. I know you can't wear them in a meet, but with all the extra overload work that I've been doing, I just wanted to make sure that I was keeping my elbow safe as I was continually handling these heavier loads, and I will probably stop wearing them as I get closer to my next meet. So how does this all go together? My training weeks start on Saturday with squat and deadlift. Sunday is my heavy bench single with the slingshot. I take Monday off. Tuesday is board press followed by high bar squats. Wednesday is pause beltless deadlifts. And Thursday is front squats followed by the Spoto press. I went into this not knowing how many weeks I would be able to go before I needed a deload. And by the 4th week, I really started to notice my performance was starting to slip. So I took the rest of that week as a deload and proceeded with another 3-week cycle. Well, the more I looked at the calendar, I noticed that my heavy single bench day fell on my birthday. And that was all I needed to see to know that I was going to shoot for a bench PR on my birthday. Now, on the first week of this second block, I worked up to 165, and I kind of wondered if I might break the 170 mark even before my birthday. So the following week, after getting 166 pretty easy, I jumped right over 170 to 171 and got it. I did try it again, but just wasn't there that day.
Try your load.
You can see from the video I was pretty frustrated, but that was just in the moment. Overall, I was just thrilled to finally have broken that 170 barrier that I felt had been hanging over my head for years, even though it was just a 1-pound PR. So moving into my birthday bench day, I was super amped. My birthday is Memorial Day weekend, so I put on my red, white, and blue outfit. I put on my Britney Spears Pandora, and I was ready to bring in 36 with a bench PR. So after hitting 167, I used the clips to get myself to 172. So another 1-pound bench PR from the week before, but I still had my sight set on 175. And I got it. So I was on cloud 9, nothing can bring me down. I decided to YOLO 177. Didn't get it, even though my husband said he thinks I could have.
Had it.
I don't think I did.
You're right at that point.
But I didn't care. 175 was the goal. So from April at the meet, 154, to the end of May, 175, I put over 25 pounds on my bench. So moral of the story is listen to your husband. And don't be afraid to get outside your comfort zone. I think all the time I spent with weights either at or far exceeding my max has got me comfortable feeling that weight in my hands. It's not in my head so much anymore. So while all these programs in the past, yes, I progressed on paper, as I become more and more experienced, it kind of stopped carrying over to my 1-rep max. After these 2 blocks, I decided to keep all of the variations the same, but switch up the rep scheme. So my single day now was with the bench board, Spoto press was now triples, and my comp bench was now the 5s. I'm actually in a deload week right now after my first block of that. I'm probably gonna run it one more time that way before switching back to the original way to lead me into my next meet, which will be in September. And I plan it so that my heavy days are on the weekends, so that I'm used to my heavy lifts being basically on the same day that the meet will be. I'm also thinking about adding in pauses to my comp bench days, just because I feel like you can never have enough practice with that, especially going into a meet. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stick around for more content from a garage gym, powerlifting mom, showing you that you don't have to be the strongest to be strong. Thanks. Bye.